Council agenda meeting. Can I get, yeah, a city council meeting. Okay. We have a pledge of allegiance by Vice Chairman Henderson and an invocation, should he please.
Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight I'm going to, am I active? Okay. Tonight I'm going to be reading from the Holy Scripture, James 3:17. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. Would you bow with me for a word of prayer? God, you know every decision that we need to make in our lives and even tonight, and every challenge that we face. And thank you that we don't have to figure this life out on our own. Give us the wisdom and direction for the decisions that we have to make. In your name, amen.
Amen. Okay, we have okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. Any questions on the minutes? All in favor with the sign of aye. Opposers, nay. Thank you. There is no special presentation tonight, but tonight we do have a public hearing. That public hearing is going to be about the request to establish the Downtown Central Business Improvement District here in our city. And I want to thank all of y'all who has come to give your input into this process. At this time, I would now ask our city attorney to read the rules of the hearing.
Yes, this is a special hearing that has been published in the paper in compliance with Tennessee Code 754-514. Based upon that statute, there's been notice provided every week for 3 weeks before this public hearing on June the 4th that complies with the code. The council chair has suggested time limits for this hearing tonight to try to make sure that everybody can actually get home for dinner at some point. And because of that, he would like to make the initial presentation to be presented by River City at this point in time on behalf of the petitioners, and then an opportunity for any person that would like to have a protest or an opportunity to speak in connection with this case on the reasons for the creation of the district, the making of the improvements, or the inclusion of that person's property within the district. The statute clearly provides that the opportunity should be provided to each person whose property may be affected by such improvements within the district, but not to individuals whose properties is not affected outside the district. And as such, we'd like to get you to give your address information whenever you come and which property you represent. If there is an opportunity for everyone to speak during this time period, the chair can extend that if necessary, but we're going to try to see if we can get this done within a 30-minute time period as required under state law.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. The floor is now open.
Thank you, Councilman. And I know that we talked this morning that we have actually had an opportunity to give a presentation on the Business Improvement District. We've been here twice to answer some questions, and what we'd like to do tonight is go ahead and turn it over to the property owners so you all can hear from them. So with that, I would ask former Mayor Kinsey to come forward.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, council members, thank you so much for all that you do for the city. It takes a tremendous amount of time and energy and a great sacrifice, and I greatly appreciate all you do. Chattanooga's talked about having a bid downtown for over 20 years. I have been one that has always been against it. I've always thought, you know what? We pay these tens of millions in property taxes and collect all these sales taxes. This is the city's job. They ought to be doing all this. Well, I'm here today with my friend Tim Hennon, And Tim and I are partners in 4 or 5 different buildings in this bid district that comprise 8 different restaurants. And if you drive down Market Street, you see we've got some issues. The city is losing significant dollars in sales tax revenue. We have other cities that we compete with that are doing more. We're not doing it, which is why I reluctantly said, we got to have this. And to be honest with you, what really put me over the edge, I don't know how many of you know Tim Hennon well, but Tim's got a restaurant and he's going to have to be paying for this. And when he said it was worthwhile, I knew it was worthwhile. So those of you that know Tim will know how funny that is. So anyway, you know, 81.9% of the assessed value of the property owners in this district have signed up for this. We're asking to tax ourselves because we want to make this city better. We want to get the city of Chattanooga more sales tax revenue, higher property taxes, and we cannot fall behind. You know, and drive down Market Street, drive down Broad Street, you see we have a lot of work to do. We've got significant property owners here, and again, 82%. Now, can you imagine any poll that says 82% of the people are for something? Well, that's what we got, that we all want to pay something. I'd like all the different property owners and representatives that are here in favor of this to please stand up now if they would. Thank you. This is important. Chattanooga doesn't have one of these. I've done a lot of work in other cities in the state, in Knoxville, Nashville, Memphis. They have bids. Some of them are better than others. This one is, I think, going to be a true ideal one. And, we've got 82% of the property owners that want to give $1 million of their own money to improve the city for our residents and our visitors. So with that, I appreciate your consideration of it, and thank you again for all that you do for the city.
Thank you, Mayor Kinsey. Sir, could you put 3 minutes on the monitor? You ready? You good? Okay, thank you. Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman, thank you.
Yes.
Council members, thanks for letting me speak tonight. I'm Steve Hunt. Our business is at 633 Chestnut Street. But here, just wanted you to know that I've been active in the downtown real estate community since 1986. And I, like Mayor Kinsey, have seen it better and we've seen it worse. And we think now is the time to make it the best it can be. Currently, our management company operates Republic Center, Republic Plaza, Liberty Tower, the Hub Building, Pioneer, and the Chamber of Commerce Building, all within the proposed bid area. We have about 750,000 square feet under management and over 100 tenant companies. So as we talk about this, we want to involve all stakeholders. So I met with a number of our tenants, some of whom are here tonight, in support of this bid. But an overwhelming majority of my tenants said, yes, we're in, and they pay their fair share of that bid. The last thing I would admit is I wanted to impose more taxes, like my friend Tim and John. We think we pay enough, but we also realize we need to do more in this downtown. So after much homework and deliberation, frankly arguing and discussing, we had meetings with Stacy and Maura and Daisy and some others at the city to analyze this. We are all in favor of having this bid. Representing our tenant community is my firm's #1 priority. So when the tenants listened and through much discussion and deliberation, the majority of them agreed that they would go along with this bid. So not only the property owners, but all my tenants that are business owners in there. This group is, obviously, by the unanimous support and the 82% that John referenced, we are convinced our downtown can benefit from this action, and I ask that you please vote in favor of it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name is Mitch Patel, and I guess my corporate office is 411 Broad Street. Our company has 37 hotels throughout the country, of which 12 are in Chattanooga, of which 5 are in the bid district, the proposed bid district, and we have several more in the pipeline as well that we'd like to invest in. So we've invested hundreds of millions of dollars over the years in various communities, and I was looking back at most of these investments have taken place in urban areas throughout the country, from Denver to Louisville to Cincinnati to Memphis, Nashville downtown. All of these communities where we've invested in the last 2-3 years have had bids. And I honestly believe that we were investing in these communities because of what the bids created in those districts: cleaner, safer, friendlier urban areas that are going to obviously attract restaurants and businesses and residences as well as hotels. And so I was one of the first that brought it up to Kim about the idea of a bid in Chattanooga. Now, look, none of us here, we're all smart business people in the room and want to levy ourselves with fees and taxes. But the way I look at it, it's an investment. It's an investment for a better downtown, investment in our businesses that we already have and proposed. Very importantly, we want to grow, we want to continue to invest. And I believe that the values will appreciate. And if the values do not appreciate, then it would have failed. But I strongly believe that 3 years, 5 years, 7 years from now, that values will appreciate in all of our investments. And the mayor mentioned it's hyper competitive. Greenville, South Carolina, tourists are now going to Greenville and Asheville and away from Chattanooga as well. And all of these competitive communities have bids. So I support a bid absolutely, and also many of our team members that are here as well today support it as well. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Ken DeFore, 801 Broad Street. And like everyone else that's spoken this evening, it's hard to believe that I'm standing here asking for taxes to be imposed on me. However, in the last 2 years, my brother and I have invested $90 million into an area called West Village now. That includes the Westin Hotel, the Pioneer Building, Old Gilman Grill, Citron Restaurant, Alimentary Restaurant, Antibes Clothing, Pete's Coffee and Tea, Millennium Bank, Aaliyah Blake, Strand Salon, and City Park Garage. We're on the verge of possibly investing another $30 million. Since we're all humans, we know that first impressions are everything. No matter how unbiased we try to be about anything, first impressions are everything. As we come off 27 and hit MLK, we've got work to do there. As we turn left on Broad, we have work to do there. If we go all the way to the river, you'll see work that needs to be done. It's not being handled. Now, I'm not blaming the city. I'm not blaming anyone else. But the city must be painted with a stronger, wider brush.
Say wider brush?
By that, I
Sorry
mean
about that.
the area that we have proposed for the bid is a wide area, I would say. And I think that it needs to be repainted. And I'm here to ask you for your support for this bid. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Charles Perry. I live at 800 Market Street. My wife Dana and I have been property owners and residents downtown since 2004. Our property is, shall we say, smaller than the properties of some of the other speakers tonight. It's a condominium unit. but I think that I would urge you to listen to what the other speakers have said. The downtown does need work. We are willing, as property owners, to pay for that work. It seems to me that the bid is an idea whose time has come. It represents, in my opinion, the best of civic democracy. It represents also the best of civic capitalism, and I urge you to vote in the affirmative tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilman and women, my name is Keith Sanford. I'm CEO of the Tennessee Aquarium, 1 Broad Street. And for a nonprofit to stand up and say, please tax me for $28,000, I think that's saying something. But we really think this would help the downtown and the aquarium. As board chair of the Tivoli, it would help us. And as CVB chair, it would help us. So thank you all. And we'd appreciate your support.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Chairman Oglesby, members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. And before I speak to you about the bid, I actually want to tell you each thank you. As you know, I'm a Hamilton County School Board member, and I want to tell every single one of you thank you for the recent partnership for the workforce development opportunity at Howard High School. So thank you very much for that. I'm Tiffany Robinson. I'm the president of Lamppost Properties. Our address is 800 Market Street, Suite 200. And for the last almost 5 years, we have invested almost $35 million into the downtown area, specifically in the bid district. We have seen the importance of investing in our downtown, the importance of bringing more jobs to the downtown footprint, and most importantly, the importance of animating the areas that I feel have been forgotten for the last several years, specifically a number of historic buildings that were left to simply sit there and potentially fall apart. Specifically the Tamara building, the Mayfield Annex, the Cooper's Office Supply building, which we now call the Co-op, and then of course we have our headquarters at Lovemans, and we also own the Spurbank building and the Chattanooga Whiskey Distillery. I have heard many people say that this would be a pass-through directly to the tenants, and that's been a concern. I guess I just wanted to point out that with this investment, we would actually be taking on the investment ourselves. We're locked into a number of leases where we would have no ability to actually put this pass-through to our tenants. But we believe in this idea so much of a bid that that is the investment that we're going to take on. It'll be coming out of our pocket, the potential revenue that we would take in as a portfolio company. I believe the bid will have a great impact and will bring better tenants to the downtown area, which of course would mean more and better jobs, which I think all of us can agree that that is very important to the economic development and the economy of Chattanooga. So I do ask that you support this bid. We are major supporters of it, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and Council. My name is Chris Gobble. I'm the Senior Director of Public Policy at the Chattanooga Area Chamber of Commerce. We reside at 811 Broad Street. I must admit that I do feel a little bit out of place as the least distinguished individual you've heard from thus far. So thank you for allowing me a little bit of time today. The support for the bid was included in our 2019 public policy agenda. That was approved last November by our board unanimously. The Chamber's mission is to champion our member businesses and promote regional economic growth. An important part of that is having a vibrant and bustling downtown where business can operate, employees and visitors feel safe, and where resources exist to ensure that all individuals have a pleasant experience. As a member organization and also as a property owner in the proposed bid, we are happy to stand in support of the bid and are happy to financially support this effort. We thank you, the members of this body, for their support, and we look forward to the opportunities that the bid presents downtown Chattanooga. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Yes, sir. You here to speak to the bid?
I'm gonna say it again.
Wait a minute. We'll have a conversation. This is for.
I just want to speak a few words.
No, but I mean, we can have that conversation afterwards, sir. I get it, sir. We, sir, that's a separate matter, and we can continue to talk about it afterwards, okay? So just, yeah, no, so, yeah, just let him, yeah, he's, yeah, he can hear him. Okay, we'll have that extensive conversations afterwards, I promise you, as we always do after the meeting, because what you have to say, we're concerned about, and I believe you're in my district, so we'll address that, okay? Right after the meeting. Okay.
This is their
I'm a Democratic voter for 51 years last month. The Democratic Party.
All right, is there anybody, we've heard all the great things for it, is there anybody in opposition here that would like to speak according to the bid? Yes, sir, please. And state your name and your property, sir.
Hi, my name is Greg Dixon. I'm a resident of 1920 Chestnut Street, District 7, longtime resident of Chattanooga and a taxpayer and registered voter here in town. I came here to actually speak on a completely separate matter, but doing some simple research on my telephone has shown me just how beneficial this can be to some people and how oppressive it can be to others. So while bids have been heralded for improving the trading environment, bids have also received noteworthy criticism. They have been accused of being by their very nature undemocratic and that they concentrate power in a geographic area into the hands of a few. Nothing against anyone who has built businesses here in Chattanooga, but what about those people who are currently trying to build businesses here in Chattanooga? Why would we take those who are already established, and even though they want to tax themselves in their large revenues of wealth, that we would continue to make things easier for them and harder for other people to...
He's on Chestnut Street. Go ahead. Yeah.
It's harder for other people to begin to make a small business. One of the beautiful things that has kept me coming back to Chattanooga, because I've been a resident here since 2002, originally from Staten Island, New York. I've lived in Atlanta, Charleston, South Carolina, and Birmingham, all of these growing cities in the Southeast. And the one thing that I can tell you that sets us differently from everywhere else is the uniqueness in the different types of business that we have, the diversity. I know the West Village was brought up, and the Pinkberry in West Village is, to me, the essential corporatization and whitewashing of communities, just a great example for it. The downtown area, in my view, and I know other residents in District 7's view, should be an area that explicitly pushes the best that Chattanooga has to offer, and that's from all communities in all districts, and not just those who already hold property and wealth in the downtown area. Because it's very easy when you have a starter pack of money to have influence in a community and a say in what goes on. But what about those who have not been done? And real quick, in my last seconds, small businesses who fall below the bid levy threshold, although not liable to pay the bid levy, are often priced out of an area because bids tend to increase rental values. Larger businesses are more able to absorb these rent increases, particularly people with multiple stores. Bids have also been criticized in the past by anti-poverty groups for being too harsh on the homeless and poor who may congregate around businesses. Bids have also been known to oppress street vendors, food trucks, and the other. So my personal view on this now, having heard the four and reading deeper into it, is that every single council member here who has constituents in their district that want to open or grow a business, please vote no against this. Thank you.
Ms. Motto, you're a property owner within this area?
In this area? No.
Yes, in the bid district, and
No.
it's by design, and you may have gotten a pass, but this is by state statute that
At a
It-
public
it-
hearing, you're telling me that as a taxpayer and as a resident of the city of Chattanooga, I cannot oppose this?
Yes,
So
ma'am,
you're
we're
telling
you
me,
that. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Pursuant to state law, it says persons that are affected by the district within the district.
I am affected because
You are
I am
not
a
within the
taxpayer.
district, ma'am, if you don't live
I
within the
am
district.
affected because I am a taxpayer, and this is a public hearing.
Yes, ma'am.
Does it say public?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
So
by
that means
state
that you
statute.
are excluding all of the other residents of every district in this city and openly having commentary on what is happening within their city. Am I to understand correctly? And this is going to be on live stream, so I do want to have you speak into the microphone and say that you are excluding residents of everybody else in this city for openly opposing or giving commentary
Miss Mott,
on what
I'm
is
telling
happening
you
in the
now
city of
is by
Chattanooga.
state statute, that is the rules of this hearing here, by the state statute. So if you have issues with that, then you really need to see your state representative on it.
I'm
We
looking
are
at my
just-
representatives.
We are abiding by those rules as set forth by the state of Tennessee for this process. So you're out of order.
I am out of order in a constitutional
I'm-
republic?
I'm not going to continue with this. We've already told you the rules of this proceedings, and we expect
To the
everybody to
residents
abide by it.
everywhere else in the city of Chattanooga, you heard it here, that you are being
They
excluded
have
from
not
having
heard
a
anything.
voice in
Ms. Mott,
opposing
we have people who are
this in the
legitimately
city
here
of
wants to
Chattanooga.
speak about this matter.
Sir, I don't care what the state says, this is absolutely wrong.
Make sure the state heard her say that she don't care anything about the rules of proper procedure. Is there anybody else that lives within this area? Yes, sir. Please, sir, you have the
Thank
floor.
you. I'm Charles Patey, 17 through 39 Patton Parkway. I've already filed a written petition, I'm sure, and sent it to all of you. I'm in opposition to it. The first opposition I have is a procedural matter, and that is that notice under the statute was to be mailed to each owner of the property. I was not mailed one. My brother, my other two sisters were not mailed one. It states specifically in the statute, you must mail notice of this public hearing. That was not done in this case. Number two, the rate structure that is provided for in this bid is not in keeping with what the state statute says. It says that it is based on assessments from the Hamilton County trustee, not based on square footage of buildings. So it's wrong. The third point I want to make, and I understand that the $1 million, and it's not that much as far as we're concerned. I understand how it's going to affect us because I've run the numbers. My problem is that this, and what they're proposing to do with the money is, we're going to have ambassadors and we're going to do this. But really, if you read the statute, the bid board will be able to come before this city council and say, hey, we need 5, we need 6, we need 7, we need $10 million of city bond money, and we want you to approve it. And guess what? City, you won't have to pay it back. It gets paid back out of the special assessments. So we'll be able to do all of our projects on all of the property that we want to do it on. These big developers here in this room and other developers in the city, and they can have it free money because they will not have to pay it back. It gets paid back out of the assessments. Now, I know they pay into the assessment, but not near as much as they would have to pay back if they had to pay back the entire amount of a bond issue. So I'm telling you right now that this follow the money. That's what this is about. It's for bond money for improvements. That's exactly what this is about. Finally, there's no openness and no auditing procedures in this ordinance. This ordinance has nothing about auditing procedures. It has nothing about open meetings in it. And it was represented at the special agenda session on April the 30th that they would be willing to be subject to the sunshine laws. There's nothing in this ordinance that provides for that. So all of this can take place in secret. And if I, being an attorney over 40 years of practice, if there's no provision for the funds to be audited, I can't force it in a court of law. Because the chancellor or another judge would look at me and say, I'm sorry, but you don't have any standing to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dahl, the same rules apply.
I'd just like to ask the attorney to state the state statute and the TCA.
Sir, you are out of order. Let the gentleman that's behind you, who's a property owner in this area that falls within the rules of these proceedings, if you please. Thank you, sir.
Yep, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is William Wise. I own 3 pieces of property in the downtown bidded boundary. Unfortunately, 2 of the properties are now vacant. One is the former Applebee's at 401 Market, the other, the former Noodles at 405 Market, and the other one is at 120 Market. I was never given the opportunity to opt out of the bid as other downtown businesses were. It does not seem equitable that some businesses were given this opportunity, but not all. Bid will add a hardship to me in 2 ways. One, by paying fees for property producing no income, and 2, decreasing the attractiveness for new tenants who will have to pay a higher cost to lease the property. Giving the bid the authority and control with council approval to make changes to the property creates for everyone an uncertainty that does not exist today. River City's intentions are trying to do something for a better Chattanooga, but in reality, this is putting an added burden on property owners and prospective tenants in an area already struggling with economic and parking issues. How would you feel if you owned property that your family had worked hard for all their life to obtain, and then an organization singled out an area that you happened to be included in and charged an extra fee and had a say-so in your property? I'm outraged that this could happen. I urge you to keep downtown viable and not pass the bid boundary initiative. It brings hardship to the taxpayer for services I don't feel address the real downtown problems. Thank you for your consideration, and I urge you to vote no or allow me to opt out.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there anyone else? I have my colleagues here would like to say something. Councilman Byrd, followed by Councilwoman Coonrod. So Councilman Byrd.
I think it was Councilman Burrs. My hand's not raised.
Okay. Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make sure that we're adhering to our own process and also what the state said that happens, that if anybody is against the bid, they have to live within the bid. I didn't catch if you don't mind, sir, what was your address? Do you live within the bid? I didn't catch that.
I'm not 100% sure if I live within the bid. 1920
Chestnuts.
Is that within the bid?
So
Okay.
then that's
So-
I'll admit to the error on my part on that.
Right,
but
I
we're gonna try to
understand.
stay as close to these proceedings as humanly possible,
Right.
because it was published that folks that, had an opportunity to speak should actually be property owners within the proposed bid district.
Yeah, I
Okay.
understand all that. And I think that we owe the young lady, Miss Marie Mott, the opportunity to come speak, simply because we allowed somebody that's not in the bid to speak.
Well, I'll make that judgment. Yeah, I'll make that judgment on my part. There was an oversight. We are going to adhere to the rules of the state as currently as possible. It was put out there all along that was the rules of the proceedings. So that's where I rule on that.
Well, Chip, we're not asking you for your opinion. I think if we're gonna be fair, we have to be fair for everybody.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. You gave somebody else the opportunity that's not in the bid to speak. According to the process, we were supposed to state their name and where they live at from the
Right.
beginning. I understand you wanna take ownership of the error.
Yeah.
However, it's not fair to deny her and no one else that opportunity if we gave somebody else the opportunity to do it.
I'll repeat again. I'll still stand by what I just recently said. So.
It's okay, Councilwoman Coonrod, I appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you for pointing that out. Anything else?
And I'd like to know if the property owners that would like to be opted out of this bid, can they opt out? Or they have to be included into it?
Mr. Attorney?
Yes, sir. This statute, at least under 754-515, there was a question about what law is appropriate, and that is the law that says that only people whose property may be affected by the improvements are allowed to appear in person by attorney or by petition and protest against the creation of the Central Business Improvement District. And that is so that the governing body can change the boundaries or modify the proposal in a manner as may be deemed advisable by the city here in the city council. It also says under state law, under that same section, that any person who fails to file a protest or who fails to appear at the public hearing or having filed withdrew their protest shall be deemed to have waived any objection to the creation of the district, the making of the improvements, or the inclusion of such person's property within the district. That is the reason that only those individuals whose property is affected within the district are allowed to speak.
Okay.
So,
Okay, do you have,
so can
Do
they
you- do
opt
you have-
out
you have
or
any-
not? That's what I'm concerned about. Can they opt out?
Any person whose property may be affected by the district can request to be, have the boundaries amended at this point in time. That's one of the things that the statute provides for.
I'm Pamela Reimer O'Dwyer, and I'm a landowner at, from 17 Parkway down to the end of the block. And I absolutely beg you to please opt us out because, for several reasons. One, the most important one is that we're already being negatively affected for the moment, at least for the next year, and I have not been able to rent properties in my buildings because of the anticipation of the tearing up of the parkway. So that's reason number one that I think we should be opted out, but also because I'd like to give honor to all of those who stood up today in favor of the bid, and the 82% of those people want it. I say we should praise them, let them have their bid, and we are on the absolute border. All of Patton Parkway is literally bordered by land that is not in the bid. So I'm asking for the opportunity to be opted out, and not just for bad reasons, but because I do think that we don't need ambassadors. I picked up the garbages before I came over here today. I stopped in the street for the day. I do it regularly. My mother, Mrs. Patey, did it regularly. She taught us to do it. I pressure wash. We remove the graffiti. We're fined by the city if we don't remove the graffiti. And when I went to the meetings, those were the things that people were saying what they were going to give us with the money from the bid. So we're responsible citizens. We'll take care of our property very nicely and would appreciate being allowed to opt out. And it's undemocratic and it's a tax.
okay, is there anybody that lives owns property in the district would like to speak again? With that being said, I do hereby close this hearing. And now, at this time, I will address comments, questions, or concerns from my colleagues. We have Councilwoman Burrs.
Thank you. Couple of questions. First of all, Phil, everything that you're saying from the dais is part of state law, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And it's very clear we would have it differently in process.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So Mr. Patey made a couple of points that I want to double check. Was there sufficient notice? Proper and sufficient notice?
Yes, ma'am. I
So-
believe there was sufficient notice, at least from Mr. Patey, insofar as he is here this evening, because there were publications in the paper for 3 consecutive weeks.
No, I mean, notice.
Yes,
Yeah,
Yes.
property owner. It's not notice of this meeting, it's property owner
ma'am.
notice.
But someone who shows up at the meeting cannot complain of lack of notice, ma'am.
Yeah. This is.
All right, I think if there's notice of the meeting. I really would like to finish, please, thank you. I believe he was talking about mailed notice
Yes, ma'am.
of the bid happening.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I don't know, was everybody get written notice by mail?
Thank you, Councilwoman Burrs. Yes, in fact, during the whole process of the bid, we had 6 public meetings, and I know that some of the Patey family did show up at some of those meetings, but mail notice was sent to everyone in addition to the newspaper notice, to the same addresses where the public meetings were sent.
May I follow up? I've got several
Yes, yes.
issues, please.
Uh-huh.
Talk to me about bonding. This is the first I've heard of that. What is the bonding plan?
The bid board is not looking to bond. You all actually the council would actually approve the budget every single year. And the property owners that have come out tonight, and the 82% that have signed, have said, these are the services that we want to see. And it's basic services: clean, beautification, graffiti removal, downtown ambassadors. There is no plan for bonding. And again, every year, you all have the opportunity to look at the budget and what the plan is for the Business Improvement District.
So what we would be approving if it passes for this first year is no bonding?
That's correct. You all have a copy of the operational plan that was put together that all the property owners voted on. And it was for basic services. 3/4 of it was for downtown ambassadors, and then the cleaning services.
And that would be paid for by the fees you're collecting, not
That's right, by the
bonding?
property owners.
Okay. And about opting out.
Right. So everyone surrounding the Patey's property and the other gentleman's property have signed on to the bid. When you look at a bid district, if there are some outliers, you can adjust the boundary. But everyone else on Patton Parkway that's put money into the parkway also signed on to the bid. So that's surrounded by property owners that want to be part of it. The same thing with the other properties he referenced are right in the middle of the city, so there is no opt-out. They are in the middle of the service area, and they will be receiving the benefit of the services that are offered from the bid.
So if one wants to opt out, who makes that decision? Or is there no possibility?
Once it's approved, the district, you all are approving the district. There's no opt-out. So everyone participates inside that bid district.
Okay. And one last question. I spoke to you earlier about amendments. Are you friendly to an amendment, your board, of open meetings?
Yes. In fact, that was in the ordinance. It was open meetings. So
It's sunshine meetings?
yes, that was actually referenced in the ordinance, sunshine meetings.
And what about an annual audit? To
Yes.
show that you're doing independent audit, to show you're doing what you said you were going to do, the way you said you were going to do it?
Absolutely, and there is yearly reporting back to this body to look at what was done. You all have the opportunity to look at all of that. And yes, there would be a yearly audit. You can imagine with 200 property owners, you would want an annual audit to show that the work that was done was completed.
Okay, so the open meeting issue and the annual audit issue, is it your understanding that that's in the written plan?
Yes, it is.
And is the written plan part of the ordinance? Or is it an appendage, or does it need to be put in as amendments?
Is it attached to the ordinance?
Well, you know what? Let me ask Phil that, I guess. Sorry. So Phil, if there are points that one's very interested in making sure happen, is that done by amendment, or is that done in faith based on, I don't have the total package in front of me.
The provisions of the ordinance right now at 11.532 in your packet for this evening says that the bid board will submit annually to the city council a financial report and written report of its activities, and the provisions of that can be submitted and for approval by the council, and if each year you would review that. I am not aware, and I was just trying to make sure if there's a provision in here as to the auditing provision that can be added if it is not in the ordinance itself. And any public meeting provision could clearly be added.
Would be added?
Yes.
So audit would be added as amendment,
Yes, ma'am.
and sunshine would be added as an amendment, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
along with some other amendments that I've discussed, which I intend on making. Now, last question. If those amendments are made tonight, I believe I heard you say earlier that that would not hold up the process like our own process would. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Is that it, Councilwoman?
Yes, sir, thanks.
You're very welcome. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Phil, Councilwoman Burrs was hitting on something that I think is pretty important. I've been combing through this ordinance. I see no mention of open meetings. So to me, it's just based on faith, and it needs to be in this ordinance, number one, because anytime we're spending taxpayer dollars from a board that's not authorized by elected officials, I think it's pretty important that we have open meetings. So, no offense, but it's not in this ordinance, is it, Bill? I'm not seeing it.
I did not see that in the final
Okay,
version.
so I think that's a pretty big hurdle,
Okay.
for me anyways. You know,
Councilman, can I would like to ask the attorney that's worked on some of this
well,
with the city.
I'm asking Phil, who's my attorney, not your attorney, no offense, but it's not in the ordinance. And that, I think that we need to make sure, and no offense, Ms. White. Number two, can I ask about the pilots and TIF option
Yes.
out?
Yes.
So the way I understand it is if you've already received a tax abatement, which is a pilot or a TIF, you can come back to this council, and this council will basically have to grant another tax abatement on top of it, or they can apply to us. Is that
The way
correct?
that it's written is pilots and TIFs are included in the bid. And in fact, all the pilots and TIFs that are in this bid have signed on to be a part of it, with the exception of Patton Towers.
Okay.
If someone came back and wanted to have some kind of hardship clause, then they would go to the bid board for a recommendation, but ultimately, you all would be the decision maker of whether or not they would get a hardship clause and they don't have to pay for it, for the bid. But that is up to this body to do so. But I think it's important to state that all those in it, with that one exception, have signed on and want to be part of it.
Okay, so they wouldn't have a problem with me amending to remove pilots and TIFs as a second chance for a second tax abatement?
I believe that the reason it was put in was to give flexibility in the future if someone came to the city and wanted to build a parking deck that's for public benefit, or there's a development that you all think was worthy of it. It just gives you all more flexibility in the future is the only reason that was put in there.
Okay, understand. Pilots and TIFs are a very sensitive issue to this council.
Absolutely.
We've heard a lot of folks. It is a tax abatement, and I think to ask for it twice and to put this council through that decision twice is a bit unfair and a lot of burden onto the taxpayers. So that was a concern that I had. I wish, Kim, that we had more time to talk through this. There are logistics about the board that I'm concerned about. At 1:30, I had raised questions about who picks the board, who picks the remainder of the board, and I'm told that according to the ordinance, that is pretty much done within, and that's concerning for a group that's spending. And I've heard it from all my friends here tonight in the development area. This is a tax. Let's stop calling it a fee. It's a tax. I heard the word tax come from every developer. So I just think it's important. I just wish that we had another shot at this, to get it right, to talk more about it. And I understand we're following state law, and this is under a timeline that we just have to, I'm just not satisfied, and I wish we could sit down more and talk and discuss a better option, because I think it's a great idea that folks want to get together and clean up their neighborhood. I mean, I think it's fantastic. I just think there's some logistical issues in here that I think as a council, we would have liked to have had a shot at and to talk to more about it. But, you know, we're in the middle of budget. We're in the middle of several other pieces of legislation, and this thing just came steamrolling down the hill.
The makeup of the board, if I could address that, is representative of those within the bid district. And it is prescribed that you would have different segments represented. You would have large property owners, you would have small property owners, you would have residential property owners. So it is prescribed about how that would be selected. And again, if you all have ever served on a homeowners association and you're representing the interest, this is an interest of 195 people. You want to be representative of the people that you are actually working for. So,
But it's unclear, as I was asking the city attorney, at what point, who chooses these members? And it was made clear that once the first 9 are chosen, however that, we don't know how that process is actually going to work. I assume that there would be 9 members of this council who would appoint someone, but I don't think that formula is going to work. Up to the 15 that you're allowed, you can fill those vacancies pretty much from within. So that's a taxing entity that is promoting within. And that just has me concerned. I just wish we could talk more about the construction of the board.
yes, yes.
My name is Rachel Ruiz. I'm an attorney with Miller and Martin. I just want to clarify something. This is not a tax. There's actually a Tennessee Attorney General opinion that clarifies that this is a special assessment. It's
Okay.
self-imposed, it's
Okay.
requesting. It
Thank
doesn't
you.
go through the city coffers. It's by the people who are asking for it, not by the city.
Okay.
So I just want to make that clear for the
I
record.
appreciate the legal definition, but.
Thank you.
I think we all know it's what it is. I heard it the whole evening, but, okay, well, that's just it. I just wish, I mean, I get it, and I think it's a great idea. I really do. I just wish we had more time to sit down and iron out some details that I think need to be ironed out. So that's been my hangups the whole time, and we just haven't had enough time, I think, to discuss it. So I appreciate
Thank
you
you.
answering my questions
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Vice Chairman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I'm not sure what to say about this process when we have I mean, this really, I would have thought should have been a slam dunk or just a, turn away and say goodbye. But, I mean, this board, this council up here is very divided. I don't understand, there wasn't a reason for that. I mean, I feel like should have been presented maybe in a little bit better fashion. Maybe we should have been brought along with all these board meetings these public meetings that have been had. It's really a shame that this council is this divided over this issue. All that being said, that wasn't even my question. Mr. Attorney, I want to clarify something that Mr. Patey brought up and Councilwoman Burrs was alluding to, and I'm not sure you ever got a straight answer. It was my understanding that Mr. Patey said for this meeting, for this public meeting before the second vote, there should have been letters mailed out. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, and I think that's what Ms. White just told you was.
Well, I heard her say that letters were mailed out to public meetings, but referencing other public meetings. I wanted to be specific to this meeting right here.
Specifically to this
That
meeting right here.
notified the fact
Yes.
that we were going to hear this tonight.
Absolutely,
Letters were mailed out.
absolutely.
Oh,
And the-
okay. Now, I've got to take her word for it. Thank you. Councilwoman, I agree with you that in this ordinance itself, it does not address anything about meetings having to be in sunshine, and I would fully support an amendment that would state that all board meetings would be subject to sunshine law. I have an amendment that I would like to make as well, and I said last week I was concerned with public taxpayer dollars going into this bid. Section 11-531B states a special assessment shall be collected from all real property. I would like to make an amendment for that, for the word taxable real property be inserted. In other words, a special assessment shall be collected from all taxable real property within the downtown bid district whenever we get to that point for this council to consider. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Henderson, if I can make one comment on the taxable piece. We do have so many nonprofits in this district. You heard from the aquarium tonight. There's been every nonprofit, with the exception of the 2 churches, have signed on to be part of the district. The 2 churches have an opportunity. Any 501c3 can come in front of the bid board for a hardship clause, but that is why that language is stated that way. The state statute also says that government can opt in, but you are exempt already. You have the opportunity to opt in.
I don't read, where does that say that in this ordinance?
Okay.
There's a specific state statute that talks about that. It's not in the ordinance, but state law.
Where does it
says-
say it in the ordinance?
The state law controls what you can do. The state law
Then
at
I'm a
section
no.
784-523 of the Tennessee Code talks about what government property has. Under that provision, no special assessment shall be levied on any government-owned property, including but not limited to any property owned by a county or a public building authority without approval of the governing body for such governmental entity.
Councilman Haynes? Thank you. Okay, thank you, sir. Councilman Gilbert?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Field,
Yes, sir.
based on what you read a few minutes ago, the individuals here that want to opt out, can we make an amendment as council to put that into effect?
Y'all have the authority to define the district any way you wish in this ordinance. Yes, sir.
So I can make an amendment to opt out the individuals that spoke today, correct?
Yes, sir. And this was their opportunity to speak if they wished to opt out.
Okay, I'll make that amendment today. I got one more question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Tell me more about your ambassadors. Tell me how they function and how they're going to, what are they going to actually do?
The ambassadors are really just that. They're there to walk the streets. They're there to interact with residents, workers, tourists. We also have people that will be there picking up trash, giving out directions. We will be training our ambassadors to work with social services and with your police department. They have no enforcement ability at all. But they actually be working in conjunction, just more eyes on the street to help those in distress. And they will go through extensive training.
So you're saying that if someone is at a facility and the person at the facility won't they remove, the ambassador don't have anything to do with that,
No.
they just make a phone call?
That's correct.
They don't touch them, they don't say nothing to
That's
them?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right, you through, sir?
For now.
For now, of course. Councilwoman Burrs?
That's me.
What? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Councilman Mitchell. Hit your buzzer again, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No, it's Councilman Mitchell, and then you. Thank you, Councilwoman. Go ahead.
Two quick questions. Kim, is the volunteer building in the district?
Yes, and they have signed a petition to support it.
Okay.
Lamp Post Properties that have the building on the other side is in the district, and they have signed a petition to support it. Smart Bank, which is across the street, has signed a petition, and they're in the district to
That's okay.
support it.
That's okay.
Okay.
I'm fully aware of how many people
Okay.
are supporting this. Next question. On your list of opting in, is the city of Chattanooga on that list?
No, they are not on the list at all of opting in. No.
Okay, so you don't, so they're not on the list. I'm trying to take care of Councilman Henderson's concern, and I want to make sure whatever we pass tonight, I'm just one person's opinion, takes care of his needs. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we have Councilwoman Burrs. You through, Councilman?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Burrs.
Thank you. Chip, have we taken care of your needs? Okay. So 501c3 is a tax designation, okay? It's what you do with your money at the end of the year. I know at least one 501c3 that's got a $6 million holding fund. I guess, why is that an automatic, or the churches for that matter? Why would we give special consideration to religion?
We're not giving special consideration to religion because, as Kim mentioned, that we have so many nonprofits within the bid area who want to participate in this. We exempted any property that would qualify, or we gave them the hardship clause for any property that would
Is
qualify.
that a matter of law, or you just decided to do that?
No, ma'am, that's under 11531F in our ordinance here currently, and it says specifically that if there is a situation where a nonprofit organization that owns real property, they can come in on a case-by-case basis to that body and determine each year whether the board would be able to determine whether they have a substantial financial and economic hardship to be determined by the board.
By our law, do you mean the law that they wrote, or do you mean Tennessee state law?
This is the provision in the code here under the ordinance. It is also an authority that is empowered under state law.
So this is state law?
There is authority for that, yes, ma'am. It is not this exact language on
Okay,
here.
what's the authority for it?
Yes, ma'am. The board is delegated those powers under state law that they have for making the assessments. They have the power to apportion those assessments as the bid board determines.
So I believe what you said was, because I don't have the law in front of me, that the board can decide how they want the assessments to be.
Only as to those nonprofit organizations that own property within the downtown bid district.
And so it specifically in state law says nonprofits.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so how come you decided to leave out, not include all nonprofits?
We did include all nonprofits. What we provided is all nonprofits generally are included. They then have the option to go in front of the bid board to request a hardship due to financial needs. And the bid board will then determine whether they will be assessed like all the other property owners or not. And then that will be presented to the council.
Okay, so if you're a 501c3, then right now, everybody's in.
Correct.
All right, so everybody's in unless you opt out.
Unless the bid board approves your hardship to opt out
Each year.
each year.
Each year.
They have to apply each year and demonstrate their hardship each year.
Okay, so this comes to my last question. I hear you. Self-perpetuating boards, Kim.
When we worked with a consultant that has helped over 80 cities set up bids, and we looked at best practices, and I think we have great hindsight of having 30 years worth
Sure.
of bids. And that is how best practice is. It's not an election. It is a self-perpetuating board, and again, it is laid out very strictly how the board will be selected, what types of businesses. We have put on our website asking for people to self-nominate. We've had 6 people since May that have said they would like to serve on the board. So then we would actually look to make sure it is representative of the properties there.
Ma'am, you are once again out of order. Please be polite and let these folks who's speaking complete what they're saying.
Okay. Okay, so, you know what, I get it. I think boards are hard. What I would hope is as your group, if approved, grows and changes, it's not what often happens here, the same old faces doing the same old
Sure.
things. And that there's diversity in that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Vice Chairman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to take one more stab at this, getting something into the ordinance. So, Mr. Attorney, what if we put from all real property excluding government entities?
Did you want to still have taxable real property or not?
Well, from what I understand, the nonprofits would throw the nonprofits in there. They have a way to opt out, correct?
That's correct.
The nonprofits do.
Okay.
So I could just make the amendment to be real, from all real property excluding government entities, and that makes it clear, does it not, that no government property would pay into the bid.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
That will be fine. I can, can I just reference the state statute, which says that already? That would be fine. It's 784, 523.
If you want to reference it along with excluding government entities, you can.
That's what I was going to do. It says government-owned property is how it's. referred to.
Government-owned properties,
Okay.
okay?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Vice Chair,
That's good, thank you.
okay, yes, sir. Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A lot of talking about amendments here, and we got to do something before we do that. I know there's some other lights on that people want to say some more things, but I'm going to get the ball rolling and move we approve.
Run that by me again.
I'm moving approval.
Okay, we have a motion for approval. Wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
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 Okay,
Now it's
we
time.
have a motion to approve, seconded by Councilman Byrd. Okay. Okay, now for the amendments.
Mr. Chair, point of order. You
Sure.
have lights on your dais.
Okay,
And unless you intend to suspend our right to speak, you need to go through those lights.
Okay, we-
For the motions.
you're absolutely right, Councilman Smith. Okay, but we do have a motion on the floor. Next, okay, are you finished with the, what you had to say? You made your motion?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Ralph, base here. Okay.
You got me, Chair?
Yeah, I
Thank you,
got
sir.
you.
I appreciate that.
Oh, wait, hit your deal again. Hit it again. Yeah. We're gonna have to back up here. Councilman Smith, push your budget again, and everybody back up, please. Councilman Smith.
Got me?
Who else?
All right. Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome.
So in listening to a lot of conversation that has gone on about this over the last several weeks, specifically tonight, listening to a lot of really great questions from my colleagues, and a lot of discussion, I'll echo what I heard earlier today, which is I wish a lot of you had been here at 1:30 to hear a great deal of questions and concerns that this council had, both in support of it and in opposition of certain aspects of it specifically. I voted against this last week. It's not a matter of whether bids are a good idea. It's not a matter of whether it's perfect for our city or not. I'm not in a place where I could say yes last week. There was a lot of thoughts, a lot of considerations, a lot of concerns I had. Some of those are addressed. Some of those have been talked about. I definitely agree with a number of comments that my colleagues said tonight, but most poignantly is one that Councilman Henderson pointed out about how divided this council is on an issue that really should have been easy. When you've got people, this many people in that percentage, by the way, not 80% of property owners, but of value, if I'm not mistaken. That does not necessarily relate to number of people. It relates to value of property owned. Having that high a value, and most of you that spoke, some of you I know well, some of you I don't, I know how well you keep your properties up already, and for that I am very grateful sitting in this seat, considering the amount of money we do spend to try to keep our city up. The fact that you're asking to be taxed because we're not doing our job troubles me. I think it is something that we need to be looking at a little bit closer for this to even be a consideration of this council. And for you to even be asked to do such a thing due to maybe lack of consideration of certain aspects of our duties as a city and what we should be providing as services to the already taxpayers, not just downtown, but throughout our entire city. As I know there are a lot of neighborhoods that would appreciate a little bit less graffiti, a little bit less trash in the roads, and a few other opportunities provided to them as well. So that said, as of this evening, I'm not in a place where I could say yes, and I wish I was. I believe it could do a lot of good work for our city, but at this point in time, this is a process that's being thrust upon us. I don't agree with the process. I think it leaves us out of it, but puts us on the hook to agree with it. And that's something that I wish I would have been a little bit more involved in from the very beginning, to be respectful of all of you that own property down here, as well as those that aren't here this evening that have opposed to it. Many of them I spoke with personally, many of them tenants, many of them just residents, many of them just concerned because they don't understand exactly what's going on. and how quickly it seems to have come about. We spent a lot more time talking about issues a lot less impactful to our city. So with that, Mr. Chair, I will yield the floor, but I wanted to make it clear where I stood and why, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's a good speech. That's a good speech. That really was. I think you hit on it. I like the part about leaving us out. Phil, on that note, what oversight does this council have if it is approved tonight? From this point moving forward, outside of the budget approval every year, for any kind of just rejection or problems, someone inside, is all of that authority, I know I'm a broken record, but I really don't like the way the board is constructed. It seems like it is a board of no accountability, and that scares me. It's a board that will be spending money, it'll be taking tax money, sorry. Inside that board is, what oversight can this council even have at staying within state statute?
The provisions of this ordinance do not give all of the powers that could be provided through a district management corporation to the district management corporation. There are still powers under state law that this city has to do a number of things. This is principally the provisions under 11.530 in your code that you have in front of you here. Talk about maintenance, cleaning, hospitality services, streetscape and landscape programs, communications and marketing, and specific services that are set out in that statute. There are other services that could be involved under state law that this city still has a responsibility for because we collect taxes as opposed to fees from these individuals for the services that they're requesting. The provisions of our ordinance here at least are in compliance with the requirements that we have under state law. And I will be glad to make any amendments that you choose in that regard. I was going to tell you that as well, that the governing body of the city has another power, and that power under 784-529 is you have adopted an ordinance, you have the power to adopt an ordinance of dissolution. And that can occur if there is a majority of the folks, specifically 75% of the assessed value of the property in the district, or 50% of the owners of record within the district at any time can come to you and request dissolution. So that is your ultimate authority to make sure that this body does the appropriate job.
Thank you, Phil.
Yes, sir.
You good on this matter?
Yeah.
Councilwoman Burrs?
I have some amendments to make. But first, I want to clarify the order of dissolution. So we're in effect birthing this group.
Yes, ma'am.
By ordinance. It takes a certain percentage of the value of their property for us to take them out?
Yes, ma'am, because it took a certain percentage of their property by value to put them in. That is the requirement under the state law for the petition. And that's the reason we've been talking about that 82% tonight, because that's important under the state law.
It's property value, not people, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. I want to echo what my colleagues have said. I've been very bothered by this process. I've felt like I've been held hostage, not by you, but by a state law that I think is very inappropriate. I said this before, and I'll say it again. I'm tired of the state intervening in the laws that we think are the practices we think are best for our community. I think it's been not a democratic process, and it bothers me a great deal. But that's something to talk to our legislators about. I think we could sit here all day and talk about how we don't like this, and we could vote it down, and yet state law says they could bring it up again. I don't like state preemption. I never have. It doesn't allow a community to live and breathe and do the decent things that it should do. That being said, I have 3 amendments that I want to make.
If you will, we have one more person. Well, no, it's Councilman Mitchell. If you could just hold that for 1 second, we'll make something you wanted to. Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm
go ahead.
speaking if you don't mind.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Now, that's for me to say.
Yeah.
Okay. The First Amendment, I think, Mr. Chair, I believe appropriately that we have to do it independently. So the First Amendment I make is that all meetings of this board are held according to state sunshine law. And I need a second unless you don't want that.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's been moved and properly seconded.
And I call for the question, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Question?
That means all in favor,
Yeah, all
say.
in favor.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All in favor? Aye. Poses? Okay.
Thank you. The second amendment I made is that there shall be an independent audit of this program every year before budget time.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Poses?
And the third one I have is that the city shall be, and I believe you have this one already written,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Attorney.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you read that, please?
Yes, ma'am.
It has to do with hold harmless.
Yes, ma'am. I was doing your other amendments as we were going.
All right,
Yes, ma'am.
well, you said it
But-
much better. You said it very legally, but I believe, go ahead and read
I'll
it
give you
about the hold
language.
harmless.
Yes, ma'am. The provisions, at least that we have requested and drawn up for you before the meeting here, was that the District Management Corporation shall indemnify and hold the city harmless from and against all loss, damage, and expense resulting from or arising out of the provision of services or programs provided by the District Management Corporation within the district.
Yes.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Questions? All in favor by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Poses nay. Motion carries.
And I want to clarify for the record, again, since all of this is on the record, and that's what I'm doing, building a record, that state law already holds us harmless, or we're immune from, we're protected from any other decisions that we make here.
Yes,
because
ma'am,
of
based upon your legislative actions that you're taking.
All right. Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Okay. Vice Chair Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
I have an amendment to make as well, and then I guess a statement or a question. I would like to make a motion that we add the words after, on 11-531B, after real property, that we add excluding government properties as referenced by state statute.
And
Is that,
I've already made, at least on my version here, excluding all government-owned properties as defined in Tennessee Code 784-523.
that's the amendment.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's been moved and properly seconded. Any questions? All in favor by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Poses nay. Motion carries.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I do have one other question.
Sure.
This bid is in your district, and I do value the opinion of the council person whose district it affects or that it's in. Are you in favor, as these amendments have been added, of this bid?
Yeah, as I have been all along, I have been in favor of this bid request.
And you support it?
And I fully support it. I've been a part of the process for over a year. I've talked to a number of residents, both for and against, and I see nothing but value added for our city, and I think it can be good. You know, we talk a lot about tourists, but I also look at the residents that live here. And I think it's potential to really energize our downtown and let it bleed off into other areas of our city for economic and social progress. We just have to all want to work together and make it happen. So in answer to your question, I am in full support of this bid.
Okay.
Thank you for asking. Councilman Gilbert.
I'd like to make an amendment that the individual that came here tonight that was against it can be opt-out of the bid.
So all those?
All the ones that came, I think that's your rule, correct?
Yes, sir. Mr.
Phil?
Yes.
Councilman, can we address the dynamics of that?
If the chair says you can, yes, under the chair's rules.
It's in the board hands.
Right.
Yeah, we're good. Right. What was the,
I got a second already.
okay, it's been moved and properly seconded? What? Okay,
The amendment to the amendment is any person who is in this hearing tonight in opposition is accepted.
Okay, I go with that.
okay. Been moved and properly seconded. Questions? All in favor by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay, one nay. Okay, who do we have here? Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make an amendment at item G, removing the option for pilots and TIFs to receive a second tax abatement, be stricken from the ordinance.
It's been moved and properly seconded by Councilman Gilbert. Questions? All in, oh, you got a question? Okay. Vice Chairman Henderson. Okay, you are now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate the amendment. I guess my question is, and it seemed like you spoke earlier, in opposition to the bid, do you, with this amendment, plan on supporting the bid?
Councilman, I'm getting there. I have one more amendment.
And does that mean at that point you would be in support?
I have one more amendment. See how it goes.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Chair. Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a little bit of a point of order. How are we ever going to prove who's in opposition in this room to opt out of the bid?
Get it on the record. Who's opposed? If property owners.
Property owners, please.
Okay.
I don't believe we've heard from one gentleman back there.
Nicole, if we can get their names.
Thank you, council. I just want to check with
State
you.
your name, please.
Peter Stein, and I'm an elder with Second Presbyterian Church, located at Pine and 7th Street. I just want to make sure that I can speak for the church, because the church technically is owned by the presbytery, but, you know, the money that you're requesting would come from our budget. So am I in order here?
So are you are authorized to speak for,
Yes, sir.
and you will?
I'm an
like-
elder on session there.
Okay.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
Please do. Thank you.
The reason we would have some opposition to it is because we have a zero-sum budget, meaning if this $7,000 or $8,000 that's going into this bid process is taken out, other programs within our church would suffer. And generally speaking, about 10% of our budget goes to mission projects here in the city. That's probably where it would come from, and that would be a cruel blow to some of these places like Metropolitan Ministries, CK, Salvation Army, places like that. The other thing is, too, is we take care of our property. I can tell you, I've power washed that sidewalk more than once. We have some gardens there that we look after. We look after our parking lot. I am certainly not in opposition to this concept, but we, as the church, have a problem with the finances that go along with this. We also have benefited from the revival of this West Village area, and I thank the DeForb company for that. But for ourselves personally, I feel like we have been good stewards, and I believe I could speak for our brothers and sisters across the street at St. Paul's, that they would feel the same way. I'm not aware if they're here tonight, but that's how our church feels about this, and if we had our druthers, we'd opt out. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr.
Thank
Chair?
you. Yes.
One other question, I'd just like clarification.
Sure.
Our attorney has been saying in this ordinance, we can allow opting out, and I'd like that to be confirmed that that is part of state law.
The state law under section 784-515, I was looking at that, has this hearing for the governing body to determine changing the district boundaries or modifying the proposal in any manner as may be deemed advisable by y'all, the governing body. Based upon that, at the conclusion of this hearing, you have to either adopt as amended, or reject the organization of a central business improvement district by this ordinance as amended in this meeting.
And amended can mean properties opting out.
Yes, sir. That's the purpose of them coming to this meeting under state law, to give them the authority to at least appear in person by attorney or petition and protest against the creation of this district under 784-515.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Are there okay, hit your button. We want to make sure we hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, sir. This is going to address the board in case it's going to surprise anybody. Phil, I need to have some sort of council oversight on the appointment or confirmation of board members. What can that look like?
There would have to be another provision added to the code to talk about how that board oversight would occur. And, you have the authority to dissolve them at any time you have I guess, a group that comes to you that has the requisite requirement. I think part of the problem in this case is that under state law, the petition requirements that are there require a large number of the people to approve it on the front end, and they come to you and they request y'all to adopt an ordinance. That same requirement is there on the back end if they're trying to dissolve. So that's there.
Okay.
If they're not doing their job, you have an annual notice on here in the ordinance to have some authority to approve their requests or not each year.
So my hangup is, I still haven't had an answer to who appoints the board. And that's where I'm trying to get a handle on.
Yes.
I would like for this council somehow to have a say-so in that.
Yes, sir.
That is the only oversight that we're going to get past this vote, other than the budget approval every year.
Yes, sir.
Even at 10-year mark, the bid board's going to decide whether they continue, not us.
Yes, sir. And I guess one issue, and we've been talking about that previously here, is this is not in everybody's district. Typically, whenever we're creating boards, we have boards that are applicable over the entire city, and that is not the case here. There's specific authority under the state law as to how that board is to be created and the membership of that board under state law, and that's what they've been trying to establish here.
So let's go back. Who appoints the board?
The board members themselves would be appointed by that bid board on here.
Okay, but the bid board doesn't exist yet.
That is
Who
correct.
appoints the board?
And I think
Is
Ms.
what I'm
White's-
trying to get to.
Ms. White's trying to tell you about that, I believe.
Thank you,
Who
Councilman.
appoints the first 9?
Thank you, Councilman. So we have had a steering committee of 20 property owners that have been working for the past 10 months in the details of establishing the bid. So there will be a committee from the steering committee. We would also ask the councilman in the district to serve on that. So there would be a nominating committee that would come through that to make sure that we are following the guidelines and making sure there's proper representation. So that's how the first board would be decided. I would also say there is lots of opportunity with subcommittees, with open meetings for other property owners if they want to be involved in the process on the bid board.
So there's no way we could at least confirm the first 9?
if you have an amendment to have some type of confirmation, I don't know how you do that as to which person gets which vote on the first 9.
All right.
But that can be done if you wish to make that type of an amendment. That is not something that the state statute talks about.
Of course not. They cover everything else.
Councilman Ledford? It's-
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, I was going to throw,
Oh, cool.
you ready for me?
No.
Well, actually, I
He
had.
just cut you off.
That's a Jerry Mitchell.
Now he's going to go
I
through
know
it.
you would.
Let me give it a shot before he does it.
Okay, Vice Chairman Henderson.
Ms. White, is there any way for these board members to be elected by the people or by the owners in the district, property owners in the district?
The reason that we brought a consultant in to look at the best way to set a bid is we had someone that's worked in 80 cities, and again, we had hindsight of 30 years of experience. And best practice was not to have an election. I mean, we've had it up on our website to ask people to volunteer, and we've had 6 names out of 200 members. So we wanted people that had been involved in the process, and when we started, as Mayor Kinsey said, we had people that were not for the bid to begin with, and they've been in the nuts and bolts and they understand. So I would say election is not best practice. We would hope that we could get people to,
Well, let me ask it a different way. Across the country, are there any bids that the board is elected by the property owners within the bid?
I can't speak to that. I don't know of any, and again, when we asked the consultant the best way, and he's done it in 80 different cities, that was the recommendation.
I can answer that, not the city.
Sir, no, this is not that part for input. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I
Okay.
appreciate it, Councilman.
Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've got a lot of people out here this evening that have real skin in the game. And I find it a little bit vain that we think we would know better than them on how to manage this business. So at some point, we're setting them up, we're birthing them, now let them go. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Very well said. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make an amendment that the council has an opportunity to confirm your original 9 members at some point in the process, whether it's through allowing us to review their applications, vote on them per your steering committee's recommendations. I just feel like that this board or this council has to have some sort of say-so and at least the establishment of something that's going to use fees and assessments from property owners. And if I don't try, then I'll kick myself on the way home, so.
Okay, that's it.
All right, so I'm not going to get a second?
No second?
All right.
Okay.
That-
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. Oh, Russell gave the second?
Huh?
Okay, it's been moved and, you got one. It's been moved and properly seconded. Questions? All in favor about this? Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Okay, hold on. We got Vice Chair Henderson.
So I'm going to ask again, Councilman, if we vote in favor of this amendment, does this put you on board?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, so.
Council will approve the initial appointment of the first bid board.
Okay. All right. You said you wanted a roll call on this? Okay, roll call vote. Yeah, what do we roll call?
It's the amendment on approving the board members.
Oh, okay.
The original 9 recommendations for their steering committee.
Okay, approving the original 9 on their steering committee. We'll start with Councilwoman Burris.
Councilwoman?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, point of order, I don't
Okay.
think all this council understands what
Right.
we're about to vote on.
The provisions, at least, that have been requested by the councilperson Ledford was an amendment to section 11.529, a new section F, which would say the city council shall approve the initial appointment of the original 9 bid board steering committee members.
Okay. And that's what you want the roll call on?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Councilman
so,
Mitchell does.
okay,
I'll honor his request.
okay, honor his request. So this is for us to approve the original 9 on the bid board? Okay. Wait a minute, let's, put it in the hands of Madam Clerk here.
Councilwoman Coonrod. Councilman Gilbert?
Yes.
Councilman Henderson?
Me?
Yeah.
Abstain.
Councilman Ledford?
Yes.
Councilman Mitchell?
No.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Chairman Oglesby?
Yes.
That's 5 yes. 5 yes.
5 yes, okay. Okay, we have Councilman Mitchell.
I hate to do this, Mr. Chair, but I've got to go back to opting out. I've been told that no donut holes are allowed by state law, and we've obviously got a donut hole in what we just did. So you can opt out on the fringes, but not in the middle. Now, I don't know. Can you confirm if that's true or not, Mr. Attorney?
You have to have specific boundaries under the state law in order to be able to have something within there. The definition that you have right now for the district boundaries are under 11.525 in the code.
Attorney.
And I guess the reference that I've been given here under section 784.512 says that each district shall be of such size and form to include all properties that within the judgment of this body will be benefited by the improvements. So creating donut holes in the middle of an area that is a district can be a problem. If you have a situation where you can not create a donut hole, you can look at that. This is the only opportunity for people to have, under state law, to object to being brought in or not. But you cannot create a hole where there is property around it that would be included.
Except for nonprofits or government, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. We have Councilman Byrd.
In that case, by the Patys not wanting to be in it, is it possible to amend Patton Parkway between Lindsay Street and Georgia Avenue? Can an amendment to?
Amended.
Move to amend to remove Patton Parkway between Lindsay Street and Georgia Avenue.
The provisions that you've got right now for the boundaries on here are saying that it would go over, I guess, the Tennessee River to the north, the US 27 to the west, 11th Street to the south, and Cherry, Georgia to the east. So that's the drawing of the boundaries on here. As long as there is a map that would draw those properties out, that would have to be done.
Patton Parkway is not in?
Is it, what about, he's referring to Patton Parkway.
There
Is that the edge?
There's a reference, there was a map that was actually included with the ordinance initially as well.
Thank you, Councilman. All the other properties along Patton Parkway have signed to be in the district.
Yes.
It was put in specifically because of the $1 million of improvements that are getting ready to happen as part of the Miller Park District. So all the other properties along that area have signed to be in.
Okay. Donut hole.
So, what's your pleasure?
I have no pleasure at this point.
Okay. No, ma'am, you can't, you cannot, ma'am, this is not, I'm sorry, yeah. Councilman Gilbert, please.
Based off what the lawyer said, I'm just saying is at the edge, anything that's around the edge, they can draw them out. Correct?
As long as that district, it has to be including all properties within the boundaries of the district. If the district can be amended to do that, that could be done, but I think that'd require you to have a different map.
So we have to ask for another map?
Yes, sir.
You have to vote on that now, or what?
If you're going to have an amendment to amend those boundaries, yes, sir, should have that. But it does state in state law here that you can change the district boundaries in such manners as may be deemed advisable by the governing body, and that's clear under 784-515,
So we can't change it by drawing up another map.
by drawing up another map.
And when we have to do that?
Well, the ordinance is supposed to become final at the conclusion of this public hearing. And this is the final reading at that point in time under that same state law.
So we have to do it by next week? If we vote on this?
I'm still waiting to hear where you go. Yes, sir.
Okay, Councilman Gilbert? Councilwoman Coonrod?
Councilwoman Chair. Thank you. We've made so many amendments to this bid, and it still seems like the council really don't know what direction to go in. And then we just saw, is our city attorney reading from the same paperwork as what River City just provided Stacy to bring up here? Because now I'm really confused, because he stated earlier that as long as it was an amendment in a second and we agreed on it, that they could opt out. And then all of a sudden, a loophole is found, and then there's some additional paperwork that is brought to our city attorney. That doesn't show that the process, like, I'm really just confused. I want to make sure, is that what they're presenting, can the council get the paperwork on that, to look at it, to make sure we're not just being misled into something else? Like, it just doesn't look right for our chief of staff to be bringing our city attorney some paperwork from. That's just my opinion. And it's just done really confused me even more. It's for something that I would want to be supportive of, and now you just done threw something else in the loop that's got me wanting to ask additional questions about this paperwork that she's just presented, and then it just threw him all off. So are we,
Ma'am, please.
could you read what the state
Yes,
or
ma'am.
whatever it is?
And I would like to address this at this point in time. There are multiple statutes of the state of Tennessee that are involved. We have talked about a number of those this evening, specifically those that involve who can speak and when they can speak are in the state law. The provisions about the amendments to the code are under 784-515 regarding the hearing on the district and the adoption of the ordinance during this meeting, and it tells us how we're supposed to do that under state law, to either adopt as amended, or reject the organization of this district by an ordinance that has to occur in this meeting. And it says that it has to be done, all readings have to be held prior to the public hearing, except the final reading, so that adoption may take place at the conclusion of that hearing. There's another statute, and that was what the Chief of Staff provided me just a minute ago, which is 784-512. That provision talks about included properties under state law. And it says any municipal central business improvement districts created by a municipality can embrace at least 2 or more separate property areas, but each district shall be of such size and form to include all properties that in the judgment of the governing body, that's you, shall be benefited by the improvements and services that are proposed to be made and provided for in the district. You have to make those decisions based upon it being the entire area, not just an individual property owner's request. And that's what the state law says at 784-512, ma'am.
Okay, so were you aware of that prior to, because you told us that they.
Ma'am, I am looking at a whole bunch of statutes right at the same time here, trying to give you advice, and I'll try to give you the best advice I can.
All right, just want to make sure we're getting
Yes,
the right
ma'am.
advice.
Okay. Councilwoman? You
I'm
through?
good. Can we move for the vote?
Yeah. Go ahead. Okay, move to the question. Okay. All right, we need a motion to approve as amended. The different amendments. We have a motion. Move to the original motion. We ready to approve for the amendment, for the amendments? Are we ready for that? Okay. The city attorney?
Yes, sir, and I'm
'Cause
just
we
trying
got
to
a
make
bunch of
sure
stuff.
those amendments, and I
Yeah.
want to include what amendments have been requested here at this point.
That's a good idea.
Yes, sir. The first amendment that was requested was a revision to the district boundary under 11.525, and that was the concern about our reference to state law, saying that each district has to be of such size and form to include all properties that in the judgment of the governing body will be benefited by the improvements and services. So I'm trying to make sure if you're talking about amendments, are you talking about a revision to the I guess, the map for this area to take out Patton Parkway, even though some of those folks want to be in the business improvement district, and they've requested that. If that be the case, that was the first amendment that was requested. And there was also the request by Mr. Wise as well for his properties that are in the middle of the business improvement district to be removed, which I don't think you can do by state law, but you know, that's the request. Likewise, there is a request for the approval of the initial appointment of the original 9 bid board steering committee members, which was approved as an amendment here this evening. And that would be an amendment to 11.529 and a new item F. Likewise, there was an amendment to section 11.531B, which would put in a reference that a special assessment shall be collected from all real property, and with the addition of excluding all government-owned property as defined within Tennessee Code 784-523 in that section. There was also a request for the striking of section 11.531G regarding any property that would be located, that would be subject to a payment in lieu of taxes would be able to get a special assessment. And I did not hear whether there was a 5 vote on that or not. I heard that there was a motion and a second, but I did not hear if there was a 5-person vote.
I believe it was.
Okay, sir?
It was, yeah, fine.
Okay. There was also a request for amendments here regarding the provisions for auditing and open meeting requirements of all bid board meetings, and I actually put that in one section here as section 11.532K, saying that auditing and open meeting requirements of all bid board meetings shall be complied with during the term of this ordinance as required by Tennessee Code 844-101 et sec and the city ordinance sections 2-510 or other applicable ordinances of the city every year before the annual budget is approved. And I lastly made the provisions of an amendment to Section 2 to say that the District Management Corporation shall indemnify and hold the city harmless from and against all loss, damage, or expense resulting from or arising out of the provisions of services or programs provided by the District Management Corporation within the district. And those are all of the changes that at least I heard during the meeting.
Yeah, well, motion to approve as amended. We have a motion on the floor to approve as amended. Second. Motion fails for lack of a second. Yeah. Okay, that's it. Motion fails for lack of a second. Okay, we'll move on. Okay, Madam Clerk. Oh.
There was a motion with lack of a second on the amendment, so the ordinance has failed. Yes. The ordinance failed because there was a lack of a second as amended. Yes, ma'am. So we had an initial motion to approve the ordinance, but after the amendments, it failed.
Yeah, well, as soon as they get out of here, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's go on to ordinances on final reading, 6B.
An ordinance.
6B, Councilwoman, we're getting ready to finish up our business.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 11, Article 20, Short-Term Vacation Rental Certificate, Section 11.510, by amending the definition of short-term vacation rental district to adopt the new short-term vacation rental overlay district map.
What's your pleasure, Council, on final reading 6B? Been moved and properly second. Questions? All in favor by the sign of aye. Opposers, nay. Motion carries. C, please.
An ordinance amending Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 24, Section 24.2, relating to police jurisdiction over interstate highways, and Chapter 24, Section 24.21, relating to slowpoke law.
Moved and properly second. Questions? All in favor by the sign of aye. Opposers, nay. We have no ordinances on first reading. We'll now move on to resolutions. 8A, please.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement to exercise option to renew in substantially the form attached with Rivermont Youth Athletic Association, Inc. for the use of property located on a portion of tax map number 118KA009 at 1096 Lupton Drive for an additional term of 1 year.
What's your pleasure? Okay. Moved and properly second. Questions? All in favor by the sign of aye. Opposers, nay. B, please.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement to exercise option to renew in substantially the form attached with Lakeside Youth Association, Inc. for the use of property located as tax map number 129CA018 for an additional term of 1 year.
Moved and properly second. Questions? All in favor by the sign of aye. Opposers, nay. Motion carries. C, please.
A resolution approving short-term vacation rental application number 19 STVR00044 for property located at 1793 East 12th Street.
Councilman Byrd.
Thank you, Chair. Talking with the neighborhood association and the property owner, the neighborhood is still in odds when it comes to non-owner occupied short-term vacation rentals. And I will be looking to create legislation to remove them from the overlay soon. And at this time, I will move to deny.
Moved and properly seconded. Questions? All in favor, sign of aye. Opposers, nay. Move to deny. D, please.
A resolution to amend resolution number 29359 to accept reimbursable funds for the 2018-2019 State of Tennessee Justice Assistance Grant for the continuation of the Beyond School Walls program for a 3-year period with the City of Chattanooga as the subrecipient and Big Brothers Big Sisters of Greater Chattanooga as the subcontractor for an amount not to exceed $121,565.
What's your pleasure? Been moved and properly seconded. Questions? All in favor by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Motion carries. E, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Transportation to enter into an agreement with Kimley Horn and Associates, Inc. relative to contract number T17008-101 for professional services associated with transit signal prioritization and accessibility project in the amount of $681,300 with a contingency amount of $68,130 for a total amount of $749,430.
What's your pleasure? It's been moved and properly seconded. Questions? All in favor by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Motion carries. Now we move on to purchases.
Good evening. We have 5 purchases for your consideration tonight. The first being on behalf of the Police Department for the purchase of replacement ammunition, and it's to be awarded to Precision Delta Corporation in a total amount of $84,206.18. The remainder being on behalf of the Public Works Department. First being a new blanket contract for custodial services at the Family Justice Center to be awarded to ABM and Industry Group LLC, an estimated annual amount of $35,000. Next, a new blanket contract for grounds maintenance for the Riverwalk Extension to be awarded to Sykes Services LLC, DBA, City Green Services, an estimated annual amount of $70,000. Next, a blanket contract renewal for cleanup of sewer backup services to be awarded to Disaster Master, an estimated annual amount of $550,000. And finally, a blanket contract renewal for sewer treating chemicals to be awarded to Chem Search in an estimated annual amount of $60,000.
What's your pleasure? Moved and properly seconded. All in favor by the sign of aye. Opposed is nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Other business. Is there any other business the council would like to share? Well, let me see. Councilwoman Burris.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So I'm trying to get my arms around the vote that was just taken.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing the vote that was just taken. What I'm saying is I thought Mr. Mitchell made a motion. Did you then not make a motion? I'm not questioning what you did. I couldn't hear.
Yeah.
Correct.
Several people made amendments to that motion.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that people making amendments should be responsible for making the second. So no.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So I did not make a motion as amended. I just made a motion for approval.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Councilman Gilbert.
Never mind, I was gonna ask, I can ask next week, never mind.
Okay. Vice Chair Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to apologize for my absence today during strategic planning and our 3 o'clock agenda. I've been working with the AGC in an ongoing effort to bring back a Kirkman Vocational Center that would provide training for secondary and post-secondary training at the old Garber Elementary School. And so far, we've had meetings with Chattanooga State. They've indicated that they're very supportive and their willingness to be on board and involved in this effort. And today, our meeting was with the Hamilton County Department of Education leaders who showed great interest and a great willingness to partner as well. And I feel like this will be a transformational event for this city if we can get it up walking on all fours. So I just wanted to give a report on that today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councilwoman Coonrod.
Kind of confused about the vote myself, but that's a side conversation about that. I want to make an appointment to the Board of Sign Appeal, Mr. Elwood Green Jr.
Okay.
I don't know if he's still here or not. Mr. Green, that's him right there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Councilman Byrd.
Thank you, Chair. June the 25th, we are scheduling to dedicate the building in honor of John P. Franklin Sr. at 5:15. And I just want to thank this council for allowing me to be a part of something so amazing. I know it wouldn't have got done without everyone who was in full support. And I want to thank Tony and Amy for assisting in getting this done for us as well. So if everyone can mark their calendars, June the 25th at 5:15, we are looking to dedicate this council building, renaming and naming the building the John P. Franklin Senior Building. Thank you. Oh, 5:15.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Byrd, for the work you've done on that project. It certainly would be a great honor. All right, are there any other business? Okay, now we'll move on to the committee report. Councilwoman Byrd.
Mr. Chair, today we had the third meeting, our budget education session. It was from 10 to 1:30. And next week, we will pick up again. That will complete our education, and then there are 2 sessions wherein the council will decide how and when it wants to have the first and second readings. Right now, they're scheduled for the next to the last and the last Tuesdays in June. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Byrd.
No report, sir.
Councilwoman Coonrod. Want to hit your button?
Thank you, Chair. So on Tuesday, 6/11, then we're going to have the budget discussion for YFD at 10 o'clock on Tuesday morning. Then also, we're going to have a committee report for YFD, and that'll be at 3 o'clock at the agenda session.
Thank you. Councilman Gilbert.
No report.
Councilman Henderson.
No report.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Planning and Zoning did meet today. We covered all items on our agenda, including an update on steep slopes and floodplain development committee. Thank you.
Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next week, we'll have a Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting following agenda session.
Councilman Smith. Thank you, sir. Now, at this time, we have recognitions of persons wishing to address the council on non-agenda matters.
Ma'am, at the end of each council meeting here, the chair will recognize you here to be able to be speaking if you want to address the council. These are your rules. Just come up to the microphone for that purpose. You can have 3 minutes to talk, address the council upon legislative or judicial authority matters that they have. Don't use any vulgar, obscene language or use the floor to personally attack or personally denigrate others. And don't address individual council members, address it to the body as a whole. And you can't speak more than twice in a 30-day time period. You're good. Go ahead.
My name is Alexia Fennessy, and I am currently serving as chairperson of the Board of Sign of Appeals. And I'm here to appeal to the council as a whole to make sure that, you know, we get, if you have vacancies, that you make appointments. For the past 3 months, we have not been able to effectively conduct business because we have not had a quorum. So we've had some vacancies, and I noticed that one was filled today, and then I was told at the meeting Monday that another one was filled, but we still have one vacancy. In order for us to do our job, we need the full 9-member board, and we need those who are committed. Since the time I've served on the board, I probably have missed no more than 2 meetings. So I'm just appealing that when you make appointments, you get those people who are committed to coming and serve on that board. It's not fair to the applicants, and it's not fair to those who are at those committee meetings. Thank you.
Councilman Gilbert.
Ma'am, what district are you from?
I'm from District 5.
Oh, thank you, ma'am.
Somebody bragging. Somebody bragging.
I just. All right, good one, good one. All right, yes, sir, you have the floor.
There's not the time, but.
Yes, my name is Christopher Dahl, and I reside in Highland Park area. And I am here because I'm a bit appalled on a few things that I've seen in the how the police department handles things. On May 30th, around 11:20 p.m. at the corner of Willow and Main, I witnessed a lack of first responding treatment to a gentleman who had obviously passed out, where his head was hanging off the curb like he had passed out or either died. And when the police got there, because when I saw him, the police had swarmed around the block to, and I guess, block off the road. I was going to try to administer first responding treatment myself, and I was denied access to do so. The officers then proceeded to grab the gentleman's arm, and instead of even trying to prop up his neck or even seeing if his airway was cleared, they just pulled his arm and pulled him onto his side. Then it took another couple minutes for any first responding, as in an ambulance, to proceed to come. We also see this same thing happen on Saturday at the shooting at the Waffle House. There was a lack of first responding there as well, where not only the police officer, but the victim was also had lack of treatment. Now, if we remember back in February, a lack of department following department policy where they're supposed to have their lights on, blocking any obstruction in a road, and a yellow vest was not followed as well, which we all know what that resulted in. So I'm just here to say that I'm a bit concerned when we see our tax dollars going to a department that has a seemingly lack of training. And I just want to make sure that that training is being carried out, because I also found out that every 2 years they go through a recertification in that for first responding training. Also, I want the public to be aware of what they need to look into Dillon's rule, because that sort of tells everybody what the governing power of a municipality is. And on top of that, I am very tired of seemingly public dollars going to public interest, either federal, state, or local funds. And I would hope to see some of the representatives here tonight representing the elderly, poor, and the up-and-coming homeowners to oppose the tax increase the county's about to do. Thanks, and have a great rest of the day.
Good evening, Council. My name is Marie Mott, Oak Grove, District 8. I stand here fully in support of Councilwoman Coonrod and her concerns with the Chattanooga Police Department. And not only with the African-American officers who are McPherson and, as we know him, Bacon and Pedro, who are accused, and I believe often African-American officers are utilized as scapegoats for white male officers who we can see beating African-American people on camera, and yet they are never fired and never indicted. The fact that Officer Michael Ranger is a repeat offender and he is currently over our homicide department, is still gainfully employed by the Chattanooga Police Department. The fact that all the way up to our chief of police, who was formerly over internal affairs at the time where we had rape allegations and women coming forward, stating that they were sexually assaulted by male officers who targeted them, utilized their badge, allegedly, to lure them into empty parking lots. And I want you to imagine if you have a wife, a daughter, a grandmother, an aunt, a niece, what that feels like when a man touches you without your permission, when he rapes you, and then the fact that it happens at a badge, and you take the courage to step forward, and not only is that not acknowledged, because I believe rape is a violent crime, which should reach the chief of police, which should go to our district attorney, which should be fully prosecuted, the fact that that was covered up. And the fact that this happened to multiple women under the watch of a previous council, and it's now at the hands of a current council. This is your opportunity to do one of two things that I'm requesting. The first is that you take responsibility and accountability that the Chattanooga Police Department is your responsibility. Its officers are your responsibility. You may not have any control over the chief of police, but they do work for the taxpayers. And if they are harming the public, it is your job to rein them in if the mayor will not step up and do his job. Stand with Councilwoman Coonrod. There needs to be a full investigation into internal affairs, into records, into statements, into cell phone records, emails, communication. There needs to be an extensive investigation. And on top of that, I would like to end with the fact that it is absolutely insidious to create any oversight board that would be under the control of someone who is under an investigation or being requested to be under an investigation. So I would ask that the council would table whatever committee that it was looking to do for oversight, or completely scrap that until there is a full investigation into our Chattanooga Police Department. And Ms. Coonrod, I thank you for having the ultimate courage to say that enough is enough and stepping forward, unfortunately, by yourself. Sister, no matter how many problems we have had and the bouts that we have had, I love you. It's nothing you can do about it. And I'm here to protect you and stand with you. And I hope all of our intelligent counsel will protect the public, especially the black public, and do the same.
Okay. Is there anybody else like to speak? Yes.
Greg Dixon, resident of District 7, registered
Yeah,
taxpayer.
you've already spoken. You're only allowed to speak once.
I believe that when I spoke earlier, it wasn't allowed under state statute, and I spoke under not knowing that at all. So I haven't wasted my one chance to speak. I signed up on the list outside.
Yes, sir, but you did speak earlier this evening here, and you had an opportunity to speak at that point in time concerning the business.
Concerning the
improvement
business,
district area.
exactly, and that's not what this pertains to, and not the reason that I signed the list outside. Had I known that that would have voided me from speaking now, I would have kept my mouth shut.
Okay, well, now you know, so thank you for coming forward. Is there anybody else like to speak before this council?
Community oversight by community
Can I get a
people.
motion, please? Oh, wait, we got one more gentleman want to speak. That's,
Yes, my name is Chris Dossett, and I'm here to address the board due to my raise. I was moved from my position at a operator 2
so
to a
could
4.
you kind of put the mic up? We would
I
like
was
to maybe
moved
hear.
from a operator 2 to an operator 4. 10 people was moved, and 7 people got the raise. 3 people didn't get the raise. 2 of those people are retired. I'm still here. I haven't received the 6% raise for being moved, and it's been 4 years and 4 months, and I've done everything I know to do. This is the last step I have. HR was supposed to be over my 6%. They keep saying this person has it, that person has it. I want to know who has it, and I want to know what can be done so I can get my money. Out of 10 people, 7 people got it. 3 people didn't. The 2 people that didn't are retired. I'm still working. I would like to try to get this resolved. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Would you, okay. We got you. Ms. Sullivan is going to speak with you right now. Well, after the meeting, sir. She's right behind you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak before this council? We are adjourned.
Okay, Earl.